Strike a Chord, music chit-chat with your host, Valentino. Welcome to the Strike a Chord Podcast, episode number 3. My name is Valentino Gikoski, and on this podcast, we have an awesome bass player by the name of Arif Ulusoy. Arif is an awesome bass player, and with him we have a chat about his approach to rehearsals, gigging, and how he actually became a bass player. Also, a big shout out and a big thank you to Yesteryear Revival and the production team, as well as Eclipse for their support on this podcast. If you like what you hear and what you see, remember to hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Enjoy. All right, welcome to Strike a Chord Podcast, episode number 3. And I'd like to welcome an awesome bass player and a very, very good friend of mine, Arif Ulusoy. Thanks for coming, man.
Thanks, Valentino. It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure's all mine, man. Pleasure's all mine. So I guess we start off with, I think we met through a mutual friend, Demi.
Yeah, we did. I'm just trying to think back. It was sort of the lockdown era.
It was.
Late 2020.
2021 or 2020?
No, it was late 2020.
Was it?
And then we rehearsed and we did in fact, the gig that we did.
Yeah, at the Nightcat.
Was the first gig we all did after lockdown.
That's right.
It was interesting.
That's right.
Because we almost didn't make it.
We
there was
did.
a second lockdown straight after the gig.
Straight afterwards, yeah. That's right. I remember the people were dancing with masks on and then they threw them off.
Yes. Yeah, no, it was...
It was good
hopefully, we look back upon that stuff one day and, almost laugh about it, but people were taking it very seriously
It was
then.
very serious.
Yeah.
But we also took the band very seriously because it didn't take us long to actually gel and get together,
No, and it was, I think from memory, we were about sort of 7, 8, 9 people in the end.
Something like that.
So to put together an orchestra of that size in a short period and make it work, it takes a lot of effort.
It does. And also I want to point out, they were all originals, right?
They were.
So it was all,
It was kind of groundbreaking because, well, in the community, so my background is Turkish Cypriot.
Yeah.
In the Turkish Cypriot or even Turkish community, I don't think it's been done ever where someone, performed a concert purely with their own original tracks and no covers. So it was a bit groundbreaking.
And not only in the Turkish Cypriot community, it's hard in any community to get, because people don't know the repertoire, they don't know the songs, so it's hard. But I think with Arif, and I have to mention Arif Ulusoy here because it was his baby, his songs, So and he had some really good tunes that sort of like they caught on straight away,
The hook, as they call it in the game.
Yeah. So
quite a few hooks.
It was a very good gig, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the rehearsals. I enjoyed the gig, and I think we were all. I think straight away we gelled, and not only as musicians but as people.
Yeah. I think for me, because I, sort of the later part of my life, I'd say I'd sort of delve into that kind of spiritual, universal thing.
Don't we all?
For me, that was a synchronicity moment because I felt that I kind of already knew everyone and I was meant to be there, even though it was a surprise phone call and all of that.
You know what? It was for me as well.
Yeah.
I felt the exact same thing. So there's something there,
because we went off on a tangent a few times and there was bouncing off, not only musical vibes, but just vibes in general. And well, I don't know, I hope you've got a massive audience of not just musicians, but anyone aspiring to do anything really in the arts. Sometimes it is about those vibes.
It is.
It's just as important to be working with great people.
Definitely.
And not just producing a product.
I totally agree, because with those people, you probably won't be able to produce anything. Yeah. And I think the planets lined up there for Arif Ulusoy I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely.
I think they lined up because not only did we played some really good stuff, but we all sort of like got together and we're all friends. We're not friends, we all met and we all kicked it off straight away. And by that, that magic's going to happen.
That's right. And it was kind of like a very democratic process too, because everyone threw in, you know, a suggestion here and a little bits and pieces, you know, and there was none of this like shutting down arguments or ideas. Everything was on the table, and in the end, we came up with something.
And that was something that I saw that was a big positive, because in big bands like that, you often get lost in the mix, and now everyone's got an opportunity to learn something off someone, or to put something together, or to assemble something, or to take things out. And you know, if things didn't work, you know. So we went on to the next thing, you know. And I think we had a lot of years of experience within that band. Like, everyone had a lot of years of experience as musicians. Everyone's been to different corners of the music industry and come back. And the thing that I liked the most was there was no egos.
No.
It was down to earth. We're just having fun, play music, and on top of that, you know, we had the barbecues and everything like that. And that is a very important part, because music is not only about playing and then going home, or, you know, getting ready for a gig or whatever, and then that's it. It's about relationships that you have.
Absolutely.
You know?
And look, I've been playing for a long time, but I haven't necessarily toured a whole lot. When I say tour, you know, like, for me, tour is, you know, when you cross borders, boundaries, you know, you go interstate, overseas, or whatever it is. I've done a little bit.
Yeah.
And some of the best experiences of my life have been on tour with people that I love and musicians that I respect. And that's when you really get to know them. And also, you know, you learn a few tricks on the way too, because things go wrong.
Of course. I remember, and Demi was saying, he goes, man, come down and just play. You don't have to be part of it. Just come down and play. He goes, you should check out the bass player. You know, he goes, you'll straight away you'll click. And that's how he was, really. Well, you know, and
Demi's like my PR agent, by the way. He's a mutual friend of ours.
He's a mutual friend, a very, very good friend of ours.
Yeah, he's great guy. And if he wasn't a musician, he'd be like the owner of an advertising company or something.
Definitely. He's very, very good with the marketing stuff. Yeah. But he was saying, oh man, he plays fretless, and I thought, okay, interesting, you know. So, and then when I came, it was like, you click, you know, you try to you're reserved at what you're doing, you know, because you're going into, you know, a band, or even with not being music, just part of everyday life. If you go into a group of people where, you know, they already know each other, you're going in, you're very reserved, you know. But I felt very comfortable.
Yeah, likewise. You know? I think, well, in particular, again, I'm using an example. So what we were doing wasn't necessarily, you know, one genre or one style or the other.
That's right.
But because there was so many influences,
there's a lot of spices in the broth.
You had to feel comfortable in order to participate, because if you wanted to, like, be really one directional about it, it wasn't going to work. No. So you're right. You're spot on that. You're spot on that. Keeping an open mind, I think, with everything is very important. Sometimes it's hard to keep an open mind, but I think sometimes you just need to force yourself to say, all right, look, you know what? I'm in this band for a reason. There's a purpose for me to be here. If there's not a purpose for me, I wouldn't be here. So I think you're right in saying you have to have an open mind. Just make it your own, you know, and absolutely
do what you do, and hopefully, you know, you know, you get the approval from the other band members, you know. Yeah, and
there was an interesting one of those memes today that I just saw. It was just funny, but it resonated with me. It was like, my musical taste is basically everything except the stuff I don't like.
I like that one. I like that one.
You know, like, that's the thing. You have to. The open mind also involves, and this is, again, I'm kind of trying to give some advice to your listeners, or just some life experience. One of the comments that I get about myself when I play, and a lot of the people that I know as well, is, you know, you're versatile. And that comes from having a very open and broad base of, you know, listening and attempting to play different genres and meeting different people, which is very important. And there's
very important.
There's nothing wrong, like, if you're a, you know, metal guitarist, nothing wrong with listening to jazz or classical music. In fact, it will help your playing.
Correct.
And we need to do more of that because there's a lot of, I wouldn't call it, it's almost like not snobbery or discrimination, but there's a lot of sort of tunnel vision in the industry.
Yeah.
And if you actually want to work more, which is like my personal thing right now, I just want to gig, not going to become famous at this age or whatever, but
you want to be active and working.
Active and participate. You have to have a very open mind, and you have to attempt to play with, within reason, of course, but attempt to play with different people and different genres.
Correct. I agree. And I think, and I was a bit narrow-minded when I was starting flamenco when I was younger, but when you're younger, you want to be a rock star, right?
Of course.
And you want to perfect the art that you're doing. And for that to happen, I think sometimes you need to just stick to that and, so you can learn the fundamentals.
For sure.
Once you've learned that and once you're confident in what you're doing, delve into something else. But I think for a period of time, when you're learning something, you need to really be onto that, and that's it. That's how I sort of like learn flamenco, because obviously I can play different genres and stuff like that, and I grew up like you, listening to everything, right? But for me to actually learn and sort of come to a standard where it was acceptable to play flamenco, it was like I had to nail down and just listen to that, listen, and mate, I had days where I didn't want to listen to flamenco, and I would just put on Iron Maiden or something like that, just to because I love that music too. But you're right, you have to be versatile, and to be a working musician, and especially a bass player like yourself, the more versatile you are, the more work you're going to get.
Yeah, because unfortunately, in the commercial sense, a lot of the times in the digital age too, when there are budget constraints, the first people to get cut out are the bass players and the drummers, because
electronically, they reckon that it can be replaced.
But we all know that you can never replace an acoustic or a real instrument electronically. But if you're a producer, you can.
Yeah, you can. That's right. Yeah. So, Arif, I suppose what I wanted to ask you first as well, how did you become a bass player? What was the turning point? I know you're a drummer. You started off as a drummer.
Mine was quite simple, really. So when I can't even remember how old, but around 6, 7, 8 years old, I was fascinated with music, but I was also at my grandmother's house. There was a turntable, the old pickup with the 45s and the 33. Yeah. I used to spin records, just listen to music as a kid, and I'd literally get like cardboard boxes and sticks and pretend I was a drummer. But the thing was, and I've been able to do this through my whole life, is reproduce what I hear and feel. So, I was able to keep a beat and time and all. Yeah. So I started playing drums, but not drums on a drum kit, drums on chairs and boxes.
Wherever you can find.
And then a little bit later on, I would have been 10 or 11, I started to go to drum lessons, and my uncle, he gave me one of those, those rebound pads with some sticks, the rubber ones. Yeah. And then I've got 4 uncles on my dad's side. So the youngest one's a musician as well, but my other uncle is a school teacher. He used to bring home a drum kit from the high school. So I started playing the drum kit. And, I was okay doing a few gigs. And I think I did my first gig as a drummer when I was 13.
Okay.
And with, just in the deep end, like swim kind of thing. But the bass thing happened in parallel with the nylon string guitar. So I've got a sister who's 5 years younger than me. And, she started guitar lessons at primary school, bought the guitar and went for one lesson and then just left it somewhere. I picked it up. And then the same uncle, I'd ask, show me some things, how do you play some open chords, whatever. I was just learning. And then one day, I was in year 8, 1988, at school, high school music class. I picked up a bass and I just started playing. Because I already had some experience on a nylon string guitar.
The structure of the fretboard.
And I'll never forget, the song that was playing was this song called Rave On by John Cougar Mellencamp. Pretty easy song. Yeah. But I was playing it in time and clean. And my teacher at the time, lovely lady, I think Sue Peard, her name was. And she's actually, I don't know, she's probably retired now. I haven't kept contact. But at the time, she was a working bass player. She used to play double bass, electric bass, and she used to play in this band called Jabulani. They were like a touring band.
I know Jabulani. I used to go watch them.
Yeah.
Jabulani were really big.
Yeah, they were big. They did like the support act for Nelson Mandela when he came to Melbourne.
Yeah, I know. They used to play at the Metro too, the Metro nightclub.
So she turned around and she said to me, so, how long have you been playing bass? I said, about 5 minutes. And then she gave me the bit of a pep talk and said, look, you're natural at this. You're getting a clean sound. You should continue. And I thought, yeah, why not? And then that year, for my birthday, my mum and dad and my uncle, they went and got me like a cheap bass, like, $300 bass or something. Yeah. And I just started from there.
That was it.
Yeah. And so my family's like, I mean, overseas I've got a few like professional musician cousins, but over here, basically sort of amateurs. But, weekends at my grandfather's involved, drum machines, guitars, bass, singing, drinking. We used to do that right up until I was my late teens.
Yeah.
And we had like a family band that would do weddings and all this stuff. And it just, took off from there.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I wasn't sort of coaxed into it. It's like I kind of ended up with a bass in my hand and I just kept going.
Well, and that's probably the best way to do it because it's a natural progression. So you feel comfortable, And I know you mentioned, weddings and stuff like that. You did do the wedding circle for a bit with a few different bands.
In fact, I crossed ethnicities, if you like. So I was doing like Turkish weddings. I was doing Greek weddings. I was doing corporate bands, mixed, you name it.
Yeah.
I've played.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Sounds very familiar.
I mean, there's a lot of crossover in that stuff.
Yeah.
But again, different time signatures, different regions. They come up with these beats like 13, 4, 9, 4.
I know. Familiar with that too.
You quickly figure it out. When you're thrown in the deep end.
And that's where you realise sometimes on your band members as well,
yes,
right? So
absolutely.
A drummer would be your go-to, right?
Yeah, and in fact, I mean, I don't want to sort of like, for me, I don't openly say it, but the make or break for me in a band is the drummer.
Yeah.
So if I can't work with the drummer, I just
But being a bass player,
kind of, not make excuses, but I just sort of slide out of that situation and you know, and I've actually got a couple of dear friends that are, lifelong friends that are drummers that I work with, and you sort of, just like in the corporate world, like, the CEO takes their EA everywhere they go.
Yeah.
You take your drummer with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that happens a lot with drummers and bass players. It's not uncommon. Yeah. I know a few people that have their favourites, their favourite drummer or their favourite bass player, and I think it goes hand in hand. Like the drums and the bass are the foundation of a band, with a band of that sort of nature,
Absolutely. It's actually, it's all about that. When you look at the core of any, I won't say famous, but just any sort of working band that's solid, they usually have,
that's right,
a good bass player and a good drummer.
Yeah. So with I suppose, your knowledge of the guitar and the drums prior helped you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Particularly, just like yourself, how you said about really concentrating on flamenco. So when I was, 14, 15, the craziest thing in the world was being able to play slap bass, and I had, you got to remember, this is like 1988, 89. There's no internet, none of this stuff. So we had limited resources to get influences, but once you came across a name that you liked or whatever, you would try and find out everything about this person, who they worked, who they played for, all of that. So for me, that was it. Like, I just wanted to be like the best slap bass player I could possibly be. I saved, like, probably for the first 4 or 5 years, all my gig money just to buy my beloved Music Man bass, which I didn't bring today. And I don't know if the listeners know, but the Music Man Stingray is like, it's an industry standard bass that, all of the funk and stuff, like Michael Jackson, every album's recorded with a Music Man. So this was a thing that I really wanted. But later on, and we'll get to the later stage, you know, once I had some, you know, came to really trying to learn some proper things, I realized that actually playing slap bass was one of my weak points. And that's got a lot to do with, you know, the way I think we all learned. Basically self-taught at the start. So all you're doing is trying to reproduce what you hear and see.
Yeah, but your interpretation sometimes is different.
It's different, yeah. And you might get the same sound, but you arrive at that destination a different way, which there's nothing wrong with that.
And that's a good thing that you brought up, because it's like that with a lot of instruments and a lot of techniques. Like I know when I started playing flamenco, I was doing one technique. Now I got to the same, I had the same outcomes, got to the same point, but then I figured out, actually I was shown to do something a bit easier.
Yes.
So get there easier, because when you're playing live and you're doing a certain technique, it's hard when you're playing live to do things right. Absolutely. And when you know a shortcut and you're easier, it's in the easier flows. Therefore, you're playing with more confidence. You know.
For sure, and well, the other thing is too, your journey. Like I'm comparing it to, say, today, if someone's learning. Like I've got a lot of friends who are, you know, they're younger and learning. You know, they'll watch YouTube videos. They'll download podcasts. They'll do all this kind of stuff, get instructional video. We didn't have any of that. No, so life was full of these eureka moments. Like,
correct.
You'd spend 2 years trying to perfect this technique. You come up with, you think, oh, I invented this. But really, it's been around. It's just that it hasn't been exposed.
That's right.
But, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, because you work towards it and you achieve it yourself, you actually own it, and it becomes
so true.
Your subconscious.
It becomes part of you.
Yeah. Whereas I can show that to someone, and sure, they'll pick it up. You know, couple of hours, couple of days, whatever, but they won't own it yet. They'll have to keep playing and playing, and they have to, you know, live that journey as well.
Yeah. And that's a good thing, though. It's not, you know, it's not anything to be discouraged by.
No.
It's a good thing, because if you're owning something that, even if it exists, you're owning it. That means, to me, it means that you're playing it more confidently. You're actually playing it because, and you know, when you're learning something, you don't go out and do it live until you got it down pat, right?
Absolutely.
Until you own it.
Absolutely.
And I'm the sort of person that I'm very self-critical, and if I don't have, if it's just a little bit out, I won't perform it until I get it right down, and as you say, owning it. But it's sometimes what I've noticed, and now in the latter stage of my life, in these sort of years, even if it's not that perfect, I still go at it and have a crack, because you never know, you know, because until you go out there and play it live, and mind you, you got all the butterflies and anxiety and everything like that of performing, but if you play it live once, you can actually reevaluate of what you want. And even if you've done a little bit of a mistake, you say, oh, okay, well, I've done a mistake. There, I'll go there and do it. But when you're younger, you want to go out there and do it 100% without a mistake, and you want to bang on, you know? Yeah. And I think this is where the experience of a musician comes into play. Like when I was younger, you know, I would speak to people who are, my age now, you know, like mentors and other musicians and stuff like that. And I think, look, just go out there and play, you know? And
well, that's there's a parallel with, like, say, a studio version of a song and a live version.
Yeah,
you know,
correct.
The studio version, most songs, I prefer the live version, because the studio's just too perfect.
Yeah.
You know, every little thing is like the right reverb and this.
Yeah, the right mix.
But we all know it doesn't matter. You know, you could go to the biggest concert in the world. They're not going to have achieved that sound live. Yeah. And live just has this other ambience about it.
Yeah, it has a different soul.
Yeah.
It has a different soul.
And once you, as a player, feel that, you don't want to go to that studio world. You want to experience that.
Yeah. And,
you know?
And that's, I've had this conversation a lot with musicians, and now with technology and everything like that, everything's ready, everything's right there. One thing technology can't do is simulate live. And if you're in a room with a live band, that's something that I don't think can be simulated anywhere else.
No, not yet anyway.
Yeah, well,
not until
yet,
the machines take over.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But going back to, I suppose, your bass playing and your approach to music and what I wanted to sort of like know is your approach even to rehearsing at home. When you're playing.
Yes.
Bass players have got a bass, right? Like I've got a guitar, I can sort of make my through, but the bass is a different beast, right? So what's your approach when you're rehearsing at home?
So, well, these days it's a lot different, but initially when I started, I was very reliant on my ear. So I would first of all try to figure out, okay, what's going on here? Because I did everything in reverse. So I never had lessons, never did any of that, did all that later.
Yeah.
So, right now, if you said to me, like, this song's in a particular scale and I already know the possibility of chords. But back then it was just discovery and trying to find out, first of all, the tone, where the tones are going, and then obviously trying to play along with time. So what I used to do a lot is play along to the original song, first of all. But then I had a very good friend of mine. His name is Suat Osman. He's 4 or 5 years older than me, and back then he was very young too. Like he would have been barely sort of 20 years old or something. But he was doing one of these, sort of jazz courses, at the TAFEs. And so I was like feeding around him, asking him, "What's this? What's that? What's this?" And one of the first things he showed me was how to write charts and also tablature, because he didn't sight read or anything, but. So then I'd have a crack at writing my own charts. And, these simple songs, 3-chord songs, whatever. But it taught me, and because I had the drumming background, I would know that, okay, on the third count of this bar, there's a chord change.
The beats and stuff.
And I'd make a little note. And then, I'd go to a rehearsal and, surprise, surprise, I know where the changes are. And, they're going, you learnt the song. Yes, I learnt the song. Yeah. And that's like a positive reinforcement, because the next time I wouldn't show up if I hadn't, without doing the work. So it's just ingrained, like it's just a personal thing of mine that, as you know, like if I am going to commit to doing something, and it doesn't matter whether it's a wedding band, a concert, a live recording, or a studio work, whatever it is, I like to prepare, listen, come up with some ideas and take some notes. But by the same token, I'm not one of these guys, as you know, too, like on stage, I'll never sit down and like read off charts and stuff on a stage.
You want to feel it.
Yeah, you want to feel it. So when it comes to that level, then you commit it to memory. You might have a few little cheat notes, but you want to sort of give a performance as well.
Correct. But and what I liked about you, and what I still like about you, is that you always do your homework. And when we do rehearsals, when we do rehearse, you're always prepared. That's how I am as well. So a word of advice, kids, always do your homework.
Yes.
It always pays off. Because sometimes, even if we do some different things at a rehearsal, we're just assembling. So we know the fundamentals are there, like the structure's there or whatever, and we're able to actually modify some things here and there. But if you don't come prepared, and everyone else is prepared, well, I think you're letting everyone else down, first of all. And second of all, you can't develop, you can't go forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And that's worked in my favour of, say, the last decade, where I have performed for international artists.
Yeah,
and
yes,
not only,
Yep.
I've done a lot of Turkish ones.
Yeah.
But one of the most interesting ones was I got a phone call, which one of my mentors, a famous bass player, every Peter, he's been my mentor and teacher for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
He actually got a call up for this guy. He was a Persian, Iranian singer from America, very famous. Apparently he sang for the Shah back in the day.
Okay.
This guy named Sattar.
Okay.
And he was going to tour Australia. They called him to play and he was already booked. So he referred me. And this was like 1 or 2 years into meeting him. So that was like an honour for me. So all this like culture of preparation and things like that, it's helping me to play for these artists, because, the promoters, they're not that professional. What they'll do is they probably don't even arrange a rehearsal most of the time. They'll get you the program, but you have to do all the homework. And because I don't sight read, I literally have to write my own charts, learn everything. But this culture and mentality's helped me over the years, and I get the call up because they know that I'm conscientious enough to like, just for my personal thing.
You prepare yourself for it.
Like I want to do a good job, but like for me, that would be the end of the world if I played the concert and I couldn't play to that standard.
You wouldn't be feeling great, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's allowed me the opportunity to play with these people on very short notice and without any rehearsal.
Yeah.
Which is like, for me, that's one of my goals, is like the end game, if you like, is I want to be able to play at any time for anybody.
Yeah.
Which is it's not realistic, but it's like...
But it's a good mentality to have.
It is a good mentality to have.
Because, and when we started playing together in Arif's band, and so I noticed that you were always listening, always knowing where and what and who's doing what, and asking questions. So asking questions is a good thing.
Absolutely. And there's like, well, again, met so many people in my life. When this is going out to the young musos, first of all, you got to put the ego somewhere else on a different planet.
Definitely.
Because there is absolutely, if once you say, "Oh, I know everything," that's the moment you stop learning.
Yeah, exactly.
So you need to ask questions, even if you're accomplished. Always don't know something. And
correct.
The other thing is, like, you need to... I answered this wrong the first time it was asked to me. So someone asked me, so what percentage of your time should you allocate to listening to other musicians while you're playing with them? And I said, like most people would answer like 50%, because you think, I'm going to spend 50% of the time concentrating on myself. And that's wrong. The correct answer is 100%.
100%. Yeah, I know.
So you should already, in your subconscious, know what you're doing, assuming that. And 100% of the time, you should be listening to everyone else.
Yep.
Because it's those spaces that you're looking for, especially as a bass player. You might get one little chance to put a little dot there, like a slide or some kind of embellishment, because there's a lot of egos in that room, including quite often, like the lead instrument might be the lead guitarist, the clarinet player, the saxophone. Yeah. These guys are at the front with the spotlight on them, the singer. So it's very hard for you to even get the opportunity.
You're always accompanying.
Yeah. And that's why about 10 years ago, and I'm still at the very beginning of the journey, but about 10 years ago, I decided, look, I want to learn how to play jazz. Because out of all the genres, jazz is the most democratic in that way, because everyone gets a solo, like
that's why
it goes around. It's like passing around the bottle of whiskey.
You're right.
Yeah.
And you're right. And this is what we do, right? Now that we've played together, a few things, and one of the things that I love is being a guitarist is accompanying someone else doing a solo or something. Whether it doesn't matter what instrument or even a vocalist, right? Yeah. Because you get to hear the character, you get to hear something, because sometimes I'm playing and I'm playing, even if I'm playing solo pieces, so I'll play and sometimes I get sick of hearing myself. I want to hear someone else. I'm that sort of a person who bounce off, and even if it's improv, like I played with this band Savoy, it's a Latin sort of band, and 80% of the music was improv, and I loved it because you get to listen to these people's characters, and every time is a different, it's a different interpretation, or
Absolutely.
Something else happens, some other magic happens, and as you know, like with me as well, it's I like to sort of like start off someone going into an improv. I like to instigate it, so and it's always good to listen to that, because there's a challenge of accompanying that as well. And being a bass player, you always accompany, and I can see when you're playing, you're always experimenting, always want to push the band. And in some bands, you don't have that opportunity.
No, you don't.
you know.
And in fact, well, again, it's still I'm on the journey, but one of the, like a personal achievement of mine is over the last 5 years, I've really expanded my knowledge of harmony, and that allows you, to sometimes follow people.
You get flexible.
Yeah, and because you play with some great players, and they go off on these like to another planet sometimes, and they come back, and it's all like sounds wonderful, but if you don't have a knowledge of harmony and an understanding, more importantly, you just can't do it. But to do all that stuff, you need to. There's a lot of things that you need to do, but one of them is obviously listen a lot.
Yeah,
and
listening is first and foremost
the key.
And look, I think sometimes, look, we're all getting to the state where we go into these little worlds or we're playing or something like that, and we forget to listen sometimes, as musicians, we forget to listen, but you need to quickly snap out of that buzz and start listening because, and now I'm on monitoring 100%, it's like always listening, always, and if, not only that, but if someone makes a mistake or someone is having a bit of difficulty in doing something, you need to cover for them. Yeah, so you have to be on the ball too to see what, the recovery,
Absolutely.
So and this is it's an art. That recovery is an art. Not everyone can do it, and not I mean, I should rephrase it. Everyone can do it, but not everyone can do it to a certain level where
it's
the public
sort of seamless.
Seamless. So, and that's again, it depends on the level of the musician. You'll get your pros where they'll do it off the bat, and then you get your pros that are watching a chart and they're not listening to anyone else. And I've had that happen as well, where they're just going on the chart. Great musician, just chart. And then all of a sudden, the piece of music falls off, and that's it. They start playing.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about being open to interpretation of other people as well, because music is very unpredictable at times.
Can be, and obviously with live, there's other things. Things go wrong, and you learn over time.
You
but
do.
I go by the philosophy or principle of just assume the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And you learn. Like, I did a gig one time. It's very rare for a bass string to snap, and my string snapped, and I didn't have a spare string. So I played with 3 strings at the time. I did the gig, but that was a lesson. Now, I've got everything. I've got Allen keys, spare strings,
Actually, that's a good thing that you bring up. Like, always be prepared.
Absolutely.
Always
Contingency.
And bring a duplicate of everything if you can, I'm not talking about amps and stuff like that, but little things like, spare set of strings or another jack is just in case one jack doesn't work, or another microphone just in case, look, sometimes we get spoiled. We go to these, venues where everything's there,
But one of the things I learned, again, from every Pete is, like, you would think like a world-renowned bass player, right?
Yeah.
Go to first lesson. First thing he asked me, like, just simple things like, okay, so where do you practice? Where do you, how do you sit?
Yeah.
Or what do you listen to? How do you do it? Like, I want to break down, again, just learning procedure. How am I doing it? Is it effective? And quickly figured out, that you have to be comfortable. You have to release all your tension, and you practice on it at a regular sort of intervals and, different things, not just your favorite things, but hard things.
That's right.
And, pushing boundaries.
And also on that, arriving to a gig early is very important.
Well, and then the second lesson was about the attitude. So he's saying, look, you can be the best bass player in the world, but if you're unreliable, you got bad equipment, and
coming late,
you got an ego, and you're this and attitude. No one's going to call you, right?
They're
going to call the other guy that does all this stuff.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter if you're going to a cafe gig, a wedding, concert, famous singer, same principle.
Yeah.
Arrive early, be prepared, be humble, courteous, the lot, And sure, you're gonna come across, characters that
of course
you probably think, I don't want to be in the same room as this person.
Mm.
But think of how many people every day get up, they go to work and they hate their boss, right? But they still go to work, yeah? And you got to view it like that as a job. And maybe, you want the promotion, you want to go to another level, that's up to you. But at the moment, this is what you've got. And if you do tick all those boxes, they can make up stuff about you, but no one's going to believe it.
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, if you can prove yourself as a reliable...
As a professional
attitude, you're going to get callbacks.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is the way it works.
And it's very... you want to be the person where you're always... people can rely on you. Not only for playing your instrument, but for being there,
Absolutely.
Being at rehearsals on time, being at the gigs on time, having your equipment, as you said before. These things are always a tick and a plus. They're all positive things, and I think people tend to, and as you said before, people with egos, they think, they're going to call me because no one else can do the job.
No.
It's
There's
never
always
like
someone
that.
else.
There's always someone else,
Yeah.
right? The other thing is that when you start doing that and you get a good rapport going with good relationship going with musicians and even venue owners as well, because and especially audio guys,
Absolutely.
when you got a good relationship with audio guys, that they're going to be looking after you. You always have to have that outlook of being professional, being there, being courteous, as you said, because no one wants an asshole. Right.
Absolutely.
And this is generally speaking, not even in music. This is just generally
absolutely.
speaking, right?
Just in general, yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is where I get along with those sort of people because we think on the same level. And I mean, especially when you're a working musician, you're going from rehearsal to rehearsal, and you're getting a lot of work, and you need to do a lot of homework, and other people are relying on you as well in the rehearsal. So it's important that you're there on time, you know what you're doing, you've got your charts, you've got everything, and I think everyone's very, very, very right here because it makes you feel more comfortable as well because I'm ready for this rehearsal or I'm ready for this gig. If you're not ready, it'll show in your playing.
That radiates on stage.
It does.
Yeah.
It does so much.
Yeah.
And look, sometimes it happens. We're not robots. It happens where sometimes things happen and you're not able to prepare, or But I think if you set the expectation well from the start, and I think that is just something that happens every now and then. I think that's fine. It's not in your character to do it all the time, but some people just do it all the time, and I think they can't do it without me. So
Absolutely, and it just it's like when you're just in any trade really. Like if you hear their name and then go, but that guy, you don't want to be that guy.
You don't want to be that guy
Yeah.
or that girl, whatever,
Yeah.
But look, at the end of the day, we all want to play music, right? We all want to play to the best of our ability and play as much as possible. And being professional is going to give you that added feature of what you are, being, I say, he's very professional, I played with him or her, or this band, they're very professional, they came in on time, they didn't hassle anyone, or, they were all, pretty good, and you'll get that gig again, you'll get another gig, or you'll get the opportunity to play again, I think that goes a long way. So with, I suppose with the bass and everything like that, and you going into different genres, what would be your flavor of the month at the moment, your favorite genre at the moment?
Well,
I know you're a lot into the funk and stuff like that,
but funny you say that. No, definitely
flavor of the month.
Flavor of the month is got to be the Latin stuff.
Yeah,
it's got to be, and I jump. My knowledge of, say, flamenco or Latin jazz or it's still limited, but all I know is there's something in there that wants to and needs to come out.
Yeah.
It's happening. But I jump from continent to continent. Like I'll be listening to something from Spain and then switch to like Colombian, then Brazilian.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to pick up on the nuances, but it's definitely an area that I'm very interested in, and it's got a lot to do with my fretless playing.
Okay.
And just going back to what we were talking about, like, even though I've been playing, 34 years I've been playing, but I can't believe I said that, 34 years. But it's only the last, I think I bought this fretless bass 7 or 8 years ago, but I didn't perform live with it for the first 3 or 4 years. Because it's like you're driving a car all your life and then you switch to a jumbo jet. Like, it's a different world. And I didn't have, like, not the confidence, but I just did not feel ready to perform live with it until I spent a lot of time, because the number of embellishments that are involved on a fretless is probably 10 times more than on a fretted instrument. But the weird thing is, you can, aside from slapping and popping on the fret, you can make a fretless bass sound like a fretted, but you can't do the opposite. The sky's the limit with a fretless bass, but I just felt that I had to absorb it, learn, and I'm still learning, but, even the intonation, like the slightest movement, and you're out of tune, you're flat. You can't do that.
It's a different platform. It's like a different platform, yeah?
So that allowed me to then, I idolized, I didn't even know the names of these bands, like, for example, Katama. I used to listen to Katama in the 1990s, like, on a Latin jazz radio program, on 106.6. I don't know who they were. All I knew was,
you felt something
crazy, and how good is the bass player, and how and this is all it's influenced me without realizing. But definitely at the moment, even though I do a lot of other things, it's the most fascinating for me. And then obviously I met you, and then I've met like a few other musos, even like, for example, Raj. When you're playing with a great percussionist or a drummer that knows this stuff, then it makes you want to play even more.
Yeah, that's right.
So definitely at the moment it's the Latin
That's the flavour
stuff.
of the month.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's a journey. It's definitely a journey.
Yes.
And now obviously we've got a different project that we've involved ourselves in. We'll just put it out there. It's a bit of a flamenco pop project, which is a 4-piece. And I think we're delving into uncharted waters as well. There are some challenges, but
I'm sure like nothing's ever not been done. But
well, they're uncharted for us anyway.
Yeah, for us. But Melbourne in particular, I don't think anyone's really doing that kind of stuff that we're attempting to do. So
and
it's going to be
we'll
interesting.
let you know when that's all done and when we're ready to do it.
A few surprises along the way.
Yeah, a few surprises. And look, we have Raju Sharma on percussion, and we have Dylan, who's a top-notch, singer. So hopefully something comes out of it, and we do some really cool things and everything like that. But I think we'll just, take it by as it comes, and we'll just, feel our way through for the start, and then prepare, and just play music, I suppose. And I think it's a different concept to pop and to flamenco, because we're sort of like trying to have the two worlds meet, right? But I think we've got the capabilities there.
Yes, and also I'm trying to find the right words to put it, but it's got to have a flavour that's like a little bit unique as well.
Yeah,
because the members, like, some are classically trained, others got jazz influence, flamenco. There's a lot of influences there.
There are. You got to unify them.
Yes.
We got to unify them anyway.
So but it's like MMA for music, basically.
MMA for music. I like that one. Look, Arif, thank you very much for being part of the podcast. And look, I'm looking forward to doing more projects with you, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Vale. And my pleasure. I'm honoured to be here tonight. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you, man. It's been my pleasure. We'll have a bit of a drink.
Yes.
And just a quick shout out to Yesteryear. To Yesteryear for the fantastic venue here, and the cakes from Eclipse, and we'll stay tuned for a bit of a jam.
Hope you enjoyed the Strike A Chord podcast. Be sure to visit valentinoflamenco.com to access more podcast episodes, news, and other projects that I'm currently working on. Thanks for listening and watching.